We continue now at the top of Daf Zayin Amud Aleph and Meseches Menachos. This is Menachos Daf 7a. On the previous Amud, the Gemara was discussing the opinion of Ben Beseira that if the komets of a korban mincha is taken by someone who's disqualified or in a disqualified manner, it can be returned to the original flour and then taken again in the proper fashion. And on the previous Amud, the Gemara brought some Tanoim who hold that this is only true if it hasn't yet been sanctified in a vessel, but once that komets was sanctified in a vessel, then it is too late, and then it is possible it is disqualified. But the Gemara now continues and asks, but when the komets is returned to its original place, to that original vessel, so why don't we say the same thing? Tiktosh v'lifso, let it be consecrated there, and it should be disqualified over there. And Rashi explains, when the komets is returned to its place, liktosh v'lifso, let it be sanctified and disqualified, matan kli, because that also is a matan kli, it's placed in the vessel. Mali kli shares zeh, mali kli shares acher, what difference does it make if it's this kli shares or the other kli shares? And the Gemara continues and says, Amar Rabbi Yochanan says, Zos Omeris, this proves, Klei Shares ein mekadshen elamidas, that Klei Shares, they only sanctify with intention. And Rashi explains, Elamidas, v'halo yoev le lahasam, adaita deliktish, he's not placing it over there with the understanding that it should be sanctified, and that's why there's no disqualification. But the Gemara continues and asks, Hamidas Mekachin, but that implies that if it is with intention, then the Klei Shares would sanctify. But Reish Lakish asked Rabbi Yochanan, Klei Shares ma'asha yiktashu psul nechatchila likrav. Klei Shares, can they sanctify that which is disqualified lechatchila, that it can be offered on the Mizbeach? V'yamar lein, he said to him, Ein Mekachin, it's not able to sanctify. And the Gemara continues and answers, Amar Lei said back to him, Ein Mekachin likrav, it's true that it doesn't sanctify that it's able to be offered on the Mizbeach, Aval Mekachin li possible, but it does sanctify for the purpose of disqualification. And Rashi explains, Sheyiktashu psulin kegonim kamatz azar. For example, again, let's say a non-Kohen takes the kmitza, takes the fistful, v'nosin l'kli, and puts it into a vessel. Ma'o sheyakdi shenu kli lahaktiru. Does that sanctify it in order to burn it on the mizbeach? And the Gemara said, Lipasil, the kavahu kli b'kedusha, ki yahavine adaita l'kedusha, v'lo motzi lahadure su, l'soch hashirayim. The point is that kedusha happens through the kli in the sense that he cannot return that komets now to the remainder of the flour. The apostle Gemar Lakula Avoda, because now it is puzzle, it's considered like the conclusion of the Avoda, and it is disqualified. And the Gemara continues with another answer of Amram Amar. Of Amram says, Kagon Shechziru Levisa Gedusha. The case over here is that he returns the komets, he returns the fistful of the flour to an area where the flour is heaped. It's actually over the airspace of that initial vessel, umikmitz, and then he takes the komets, and therefore, since it never enters the airspace of the vessel, it never becomes sanctified to be disqualified. And Rashi explains, Rav Amram Omar, Rav Amram says, Afilu teima shalomi das nami mekachin. One can even say that even without intention it would sanctify. V'hachal lo kaddish, here it doesn't sanctify. Shemachziran lebisa gedusha she'in machzira lesoch aver hakli. He doesn't return it to the airspace of the vessel. It's heaped on top. V'yein hakli mekadsho, and therefore the vessel is not mekadesh it. It does not sanctify it. And Rashi continues, Bisa is a klishares shabobol in mincha, that's a klishares, that they mix the carbon mincha with the oil within that klishares. But the Gemara continues and asks, if that is the case, again, that it's returned lebisa gedusha, so mikmatz hechi komets, so how do you even take the komets? And Rashi explains, mikmatz hechi komets tchila, kishakomets mechlizeh, when he originally took the komets from this vessel, v'halo godashu, but again it's in a heap, ukmitza mitoch hakli ba'inan, the kmitza has to be from within the vessel. The chol davar haton kli ein choshav, because anytime a kli is required, anytime a vessel is required, it has to be within the vessel. So how was the komets taken in the first place? And so the Gemara instead says, Ella rather kagon shechzira labisa tfufa. Rather, what happened is that it was at the exact top level of the vessel, and therefore it wasn't actually in a heap. Rashi explains, tfufa she'ena gedusha, wasn't a heap. Ukeshakomets mitoch kli komats be'emsa iso. When he took the komets, he took it from the middle of the vessel. Ukeshamachzir harei komets begodeshes kli kedem efarish besamach. And then when he returns it, so then it's in a heap, as the Gemara now will go on to explain. And so again, it's the lebisa tfufa. And so the Gemara says, v'chevan de komets le'avid le'guma. But if when he takes the komets, he's making a little bit of an indentation, so to speak, it's going lower in the vessel now. There's an area where it can now be refilled. So ki mahadar legavi demona ka mahadar le, isn't he still returning it within the vessel? Again, it's the same problem. It's being returned to the vessel. It should be sanctified and disqualified in the vessel. And the Gemara continues and answers, as Rashi said, when he's going to return this kometz to the vessel, he does it on the wall of the vessel, and then he moves it in a way that it falls memela into the vessel. That's as if it was returned by a monkey, and therefore there is no problem. Again, in such a situation, it would not become sanctified and disqualified. And Rashi explains, V'chaparach, the Gemara asks, Taki kamatz avid guma v'chi mahader, when he takes the kometz, he makes a furrow in the flour, and then when he's returning the kometz beguma, when he's returning it there, havale toch kli, so it is within the vessel. Umeshani, and then the Gemara answers, Ki mahader le'a dufnisa demona, betzide hakli eitzel guma hechziro, he returns it to the side of the vessel, v'havik godesh hakli, at that point it's still in a heap, v'nayid lemona v'nafel kometz memela, he moves the vessel, and the kometz memela automatically falls, leguma to the furrow, kadeshi a roy lekmitzas kohen, and at that point again it is fit that the kometz can be taken by the kohen. V'keivan de memela nafa lemana, and since it's automatically falling into the vessel, nasa kamisha chziru hakof, so then it's as if it's returned by a monkey, v'lo mekadesh lekli, and it's not sanctified by the vessel. V'avagav the klisharis mekadshin shalom idas. Now, even though a klisharis is mekadesh, it sanctifies shalom idas without intention. Hani miliki mahader leiu mamish. That's only if he himself returns it. Adaita the lo likdosh mekadesh lekli shemachziro ben shemunach agavi karka. Again, only if he himself does the actual physical returning. So then you're going to have this problem that it's sanctified and disqualified, but it's not a problem in this situation. And the Gemara continues, Amar le Rabbi Yirmiyah Rabbi Zeira. Rabbi Yirmiyah said to Rabbi Zeira, V'lukma, why not say that the case is, Kagon shechziru lekli hamunach al gabi karka, he returned it to the vessel, but the vessel was on the ground, maybe that would not be mekadesh it. Elashmami, no, rather we see from here, komsin mikli sha'al gabi karka, that we are allowed to take the komets from a vessel that's sitting on the ground, and likewise, it would be mekadesh, and it would be a problem of disqualification in this case. And Rashi explains, komets mikli shal gabe karka. Again, you could take a kometz from a vessel that's on the ground. V'achanam mikachin komets ma'bol shal gabe karka. And similarly, it would be mekadesh in such a situation. And the Gemara continues, Rabbi Zeir responds, this issue of komsin mikli shal gabe karka, kon nagata bebaya di boilon, you've actually touched upon a question that was asked. The Rabbi Avimi tani Menachos bei Rav Chisda. Rabbi Avimi, he learned Menachos by the yeshiva of Rav Chisda. And the Gemara interrupts and asks, V'avimi bei Rav Chisda, Tani, did Avimi really learn by the yeshiva of Rav Chisda? It's actually the other way around. Rav Chisda was actually the student of Avimi. V'amar Rav Chisda, but Rav Chisda said, Kulfi tavi boli me Avimi alod hashmaita, I absorbed many blows from Avimi about the following sugya, about the following teaching. Bala hachriz ritzufin, when it comes to the property of Isomim, of orphans, if he wants to announce that property, we'll see Rashi in a moment, for consecutive days, then Lamed Yom, then he announces for 30 days. Sheni v'chamishi, but if it's only on Mondays and Thursdays, so then Samach Yomi, so then it is 60 days. And in any case, what do you see? You see that Rav Chisda is acting as the Talmud. He is like the student of Avimi. And the Gemara says, Avimi Mesechta Isaker Le. Avimi actually forgot this Mesechta, meaning he forgot Meseches Menachos. V'yasa Kami de Rav Chisda Ladchure Gamre, and he went before Rav Chisda in order to remember the teachings, in order to remember the Mesechta. But the Gemara says, if Avimi was really the Rebbe, V'lishlach Le, V'leisi Lagabe, he should send for Rav Chisda, and Rav Chisda should come to him. And the Gemara says, Savri thought to himself, Hachi Mistaya Milsa Tvei, in this way, I'll be able to remember, I'll be able to study better by me going to him. It's going to be a better way to learn. And the Gemara continues, Paga Bei Rav Nachman, so he met Rav Nachman. Amar Lei said to him, Keitzad Komsin. He said, how do you do Kamitza? This was the question about Kamitza in general. Amar Lei said, Mikli Zeh, you do the Kamitza from this vessel. Amar Lei said to him, V'chi Komsin Mikli Shal Gabe Karka, are you allowed to do a Kamitza from a vessel that's on the ground? Again, this is the question that they're asking over here. Amar Lei said to him, Demigvale Kohen. He says, you're right, the Kohen has to pick it up. And Keitzad Mekachen as HaMenachos, and then he asked, how do we sanctify the Karban Mincha? Amar Lei said, no, put it in this vessel. But v'chi mekachen v'chli shal gavi karka, the same question. Can you sanctify it in a vessel that's on the ground? Amar Lei said to him, demigvale kohen. He said again, the kohen should lift it up. Amar Lei said to him, if so, hutzrachta gimel kohanim. Do you now need 3 kohanim? You're going to need 1 kohen to lift up each vessel, and then another kohen to take the kmitza and sanctify. Amar Lei said to him, let it be. It can require multiple kohanim. We find the Karban Tamid requires 13 kohanim, and therefore that is not a problem. And Rashi explains the boilon. This is a question that we have. Our colleague has this question. It's Rav Nachman that asked this question from Avimi. Again, in the beginning of the Gemara, it sounds like it's a question of Avimi. It's a question that was posed to Avimi. Kulfei tavi hakos tovos. Again, I absorbed many blows. Boli me Avimi. I absorbed many blows from Avimi. Bolati me Avimi. Again, I absorbed from Avimi. Kolomar means to say Shalya Menada also has to do with the fact that he ostracized him, excommunicated him. Allah the Hashmait about the following sugi, about the following teaching. The Meseches Erchin and Meseches Erchin. The Tana Chodesh Shum HaYisomim Lamed Yom. It says in one brisa that the evaluation of the property of orphans is 30 days. V'Tanya Yidach, another brisa says Shishim it's 60 days. U'Mitaretz LaAvimai, and then Avimai answered that question. He said, Bola Hachriz Ritzufin Kol Yemos HaShabbos Machriz Lamed Yom. If you're going to announce that property consecutively every day of the week, so then it's for 30 days. But Bola Hachriz Sheni V'Chamishi, if you're only going to announce on Mondays and Thursdays, then Machriz Ad Samach Yom, you announce for 60 days. Miyom Shemaschil Ad Yom Shaposek, that's counting from the day you begin to the day you end. Dahainu Yud Ches Yimei Hachraza B'Samach Yom. It's going to come out to 18 days of announcing within the 60 days. Umachriz, and the announcement is as follows: Mi Yikna Nichse Yisom Halal. Who's going to buy the property of these orphans? Kadei Sheimacher B'Yoker. The point is you want to make sure you get a good price. V'Hoyer Rav Chisda Mishabeach Hateretz Umevazi Avimai, and the alternate gears over here is that Rav Chisda Mishakeach Hateretz. Rav Chisda forgot the answer, and then Maka Avimai hit him, he struck him. Alma Rav Chisda Talmud Avimai Hava. The point of this whole story is just to show that Rav Chisda is the student of Avimai. And the Gemara then said, Avimai Meseches de Menachos Yakar Le Nishtacha Himenu. Avimai forgot Meseches Menachos. And the Gemara then said, V'lishlach Le Rav Chisda Delesi Lagabe. Why not send a message that Rav Chisda should come to him? And the Gemara then said, Mistaya Milsa, it's going to be more successful. Mishum Yagati Umatzasi. If he exerts effort to go to Rav Chisda, he will be more successful. In any case, the Gemara then continued the story. Pagabe Rav Nachman Ba'avimai. Rav Nachman met Avimai, and he said, Michli Zeh Ra Kli Munach Al Gabe Karka. He saw a vessel on the ground. V'kamar Kli Zeh Imshel Kodesh Hayroi L'Kmitza. He said, this vessel, if it was holy, it would be fit for the Kmitza. And Rashi continues, then he asked, V'ketzad Mekachin Es HaKometz, how does one sanctify the Kometz La'achar Kmitza, after Kmitza? And the Gemara then said, Hutzrach the Gimel Kohanim, are 3 Kohanim required, Shnayim Lahagbia Shnei Kelim. The reason why it's 3 is you need 2 Kohanim, each one is going to lift one of those vessels. Echad Sheyikmot Seimenu, there's one vessel you take the Kometz from, V'echad Shenos and L'socho, and then the vessel you put the Kometz into, Ushlishi Kometz, and the third Kohen is going to be the one that actually takes the Kmitza, takes the fistful. V'Kohen Echad Enu Yochel Lahagbia Shnei HaKelim, and Rashi notes, one Kohen cannot lift up both vessels, De'ein Avoda B'Smol, because the Avoda is not supposed to be done with the left hand, and the Talmud, the carbon Talmud, Yud Gimel Kohanim Zochen Bom, Meseches Yuma B'Perek Beis, 13 Kohanim merit in participating, as we say in Meseches Yuma in the second Perek. And the Gemara continues, Eisvei, we have a question from the following Mishnah. This is a Mishnah later on. Zeh HaKlal, this is the rule, Kol HaKometz V'nosen B'Kli, anyone who takes the Kometz and places it in the vessel, Hamolech, and walks it to the Mizbeach, V'Hamaktir, and burns it on the Mizbeach, Lechol Dover Shedarko Lechol, in order to eat that which it's normally eaten, V'chulu, etc. And the point over here of bringing this Mishnah is V'ilu Magbia Lo Katani. It doesn't say anything about lifting up. Apparently, the vessel is allowed to be on the ground. That's what it seems like from this Mishnah. And the Gemara continues and answers, Tana, the Tana of this Mishnah, Seder Avodos Naked, is just going through the order of the Avoda that's done by one Kohen. Velo Seder Kohanim, it's not going through everything that various Kohanim might be doing. It's true that there may be Kohanim who are holding the vessels, but there's one Kohen who's going to be placing into the vessels, and that's what the Mishnah is going through. And Rashi explains, Zehaklal, this is the rule, Masnisin here, again, this is a Mishnah, Seder Avodos Naked, we're going through the order of the Avodos, Osa Shakoin Echad Osa. We're going through the Avodos that one Kohen does, Zu Achar Zu, one after the other, Avol Minyana de Kohanim Lo Nachti. The Mishnah is not addressing the number of Kohanim. And the Gemara continues, Bo'u Minei Mid Rav Sheshas, they asked Rav Sheshas the following question, Mahu Likmots Miklisha Al Gabe Karka, what's the halacha in terms of taking the Kmitza from a vessel that is sitting on the ground? Amar Lei said to him, Pok Chazi Ma Ovdin Lagav, go out and see what they do inside. Rashi explains ma'ovdin lagav, what they do behechol, in the hechol. Now he did not live, Rav Sheshes did not live at the time of the Beis HaMikdash. His point was to look in the Mishnah. And the Mishnah later on says, Arba kohanim nichnosin, there are 4 kohanim that enter. This is talking about on Shabbos by the lechem haponim. They would exchange the lechem haponim from the previous week with the lechem haponim for this week. And so 4 kohanim would enter, shnayim biyodam beis darim. 2 of them had in their hands the 2 arrangements of the loaves. There were 12 loaves in total, so each kohen had 6 loaves. Ushnayim biyodam shnei bazichin, and then 2 of the other 2 kohanim, they had 2 spoons, which would have the levona, which would have the frankincense. V'arba mikadmin lifneim, there were 4 that were in front of them. Shnayim litol shnei starim, 2 to take the 2 piles of the loaves. Again, the loaves were arranged in 2 columns, so you have 2 kohanim, each one takes one of the columns of 6 loaves. Ubeis litol beis bazichin, and then 2 kohanim to take the 2 bazichin that had the frankincense. And Rashi explains, nichnasin biyom haShabbos, they would enter on Shabbos. Shnei sdorim, the 2 sdorim shel lechem haponim, of the lechem haponim. Shtayim ha'ma'arachos, sheish ha'ma'areches, there were 2 ma'arachos, and each had 6 loaves, again piled one on top of the other. And we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Zayin Amud Beis.